And that's the alarm. Hello, everyone. Introducing New Year's Coding. Or, I really need a better name for this. By someone who's running rather late, it seems. Let me just boot up a Blender. Oh, that's how I do that. Anyway, go over here. Pop this out so I can see chat.
More realistic than did before.
Okay, let me just do.
How I learned to use the camera and how a lot of people still like to do it, but a lot of new people prefer this because now in 5.0 it's actually just a button right here. If you click this button, now I can use the same controls that I used before to move the camera, because if you don't have that checked, the moment you just like hit your middle mouse to like orbit somewhere else, it leaves the camera behind, okay? But when you're looking through the camera and you have this checked, now when I orbit around and I zoom and I do all the same controls as before, shift middle mouse, I can position the camera exactly where I want it, get it right there, without having to worry. You just have to remember, don't then immediately orbit like you're going to go do something, because the camera is still locked to your view. So you have to make sure you uncheck it when you're done, and then the camera is locked to that position there. And by the way, this is like a small thing, but when you're working with like small objects, you often have to like change, because Blender is like designed for like environment, like big types of scenes. This camera is just too big. So if you go to the camera settings, click the camera thing, then go to viewport display. I just changed the display of this. This has no bearing on the actual like final render. This is just how it displays in your viewport, so that it's not so gigantic it's taking over everything. All right. The other way you can quickly look through the camera is numpad 0. So numpad 0 will take you in and out. All right. But now that I'm there, I can hit F12 and look at that. That is a different look. It's still gray because the default materials are gray, but you can see there is shadow there. But check this out, we can do even more. So besides just shadow, like you might notice looking at by the way, you can bring back a render by hitting F11. I should also mention, by the way, the first time you do a render, I think the first time, like, if you've just opened Blender for the first time and you hit render, it'll have to do a bunch of like shader compilations and stuff like that. It should only need to do that once. It shouldn't have to do it every time you open Blender. We're using Eevee, which is a rendering engine we'll talk about soon, but there is some of that every time you render, like when you create a new shader, it has to like develop those things. But anyways, it's the first time it should be slow, but it should be quicker for every render after that. Okay, so there's shadow here, but you'll notice like in here, there's no detail. Whereas in the real world, you would see like bounce lighting from the end of the plate there. You would see like some crevice information. It'd be darker and things, and that is because by default there's an option that is turned off. So if you go to your render properties at the top there, this has all the information just pertaining to how something is going to be rendered. And by default, ray tracing is turned off, which I think is a mistake. I think they should change it to default on, because so many people don't like Eevee, this rendering engine, because they think it just produces fake looking images. But when you turn on ray tracing, look at how much better that looks. By the way, if you want to compare renders, you can change to a new slot, and then you can do a render, another render, and then you've got the previous render, and then the new render in slot 2, and then you can flip back by hitting J on your keyboard, and that's a way you can like quickly compare settings, which is very useful. But you can see with ray tracing turned on, this is off, turned on, we get bounce lighting. So there's some light that's hitting the plate there and it's bouncing up. We've got like more information in the crevices, and it just looks a lot more realistic than it did before. You also have reflections when I show you some material properties. So that is something you should have on all the time when you're using Eevee. By the way, there is another rendering engine called Cycles, and it is much more realistic. However, it is a lot more slower. It's honestly, I'm going to show you at the end a comparison between Cycles and Eevee, but it's actually negligible if you know the right settings for Eevee. So I'm going to keep it on Eevee for the rest, which is actually good because Eevee is actually pretty powerful at doing most things. It's just, it's a game engine.
Here's the example he's showing. For all you who are wondering.
Style, so it's a rasterized rendering engine, whereas Cycles is a path trace rendering engine, much more computationally heavy, whereas Eevee is much more faster. So we're going to keep it on Eevee, and I'm going to show you how to get really great results with it. And then at the end, we're going to flip it to Cycles. So if you want to see that final result, you can get it, but we're not going to start there because it's just not necessary. And I don't think most people will actually need it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some materials, but first, you'll notice like it's kind of annoying to have to like render something, like go to render it every time you want to see an image like that. And thankfully, you don't have to, because in the top view here, these little icons, there is a mode here called Render View Mode. And this puts the render in real time. Look at that. I don't have to hit the render to wait to see my result. I can see it in my viewport. So it used to be that like rendering engines were so slow that really to do a render was like a big task. You hit render and it would take hours to process something, and it didn't look anything as good as this, right? But now rendering is like, and computers are so fast that we can just have rendering running constantly whilst we are working, and it's usually not computationally heavy. So this is Eevee, which is the much faster one. Cycles would be a little slower, but still. Anyways, now that we're in render view mode, let's talk about materials. So let's start with the most different material. Let's go with the icing. So looking at our icing here, if I want to make this look pink and change its overall appearance, if I go down to my material panel down here, or material properties, and then I can just click on new material, and now I've got a bunch of different options here, okay? And these all do different things for the surface appearance. Like metallic will make it look like metal, right? Roughness will change like how sharp the reflection looks. The base color, this is like the main one you want to change for almost every object. This is just the base color of the object. So obviously I can make that look pink, like that. Let's pull in here a little bit closer, focus on that. So I can make it look nice and pink. The other thing is it's looking like way too diffuse. It's almost like a chalk looking icing. But if I bring this back, I can make this look more shiny. I don't want to go like too far, because then it's like... reflection. I want to go like, somewhere around 0.2. The great thing is we can really change these values at any point in the future. So when we add in other objects and there's different lighting setups, some of the settings can look a little off at that point. So it's very, very common to, like, once you've set up all your lighting and everything, to like reevaluate your materials. But
Wait, why?
it's completely non-destructive. I can change these at any time. And now I could create some very simple materials, like I could say, let's
Wait, what?
make this look black. Okay, and these all do different things for the surface appearance. Like metallic will make it look like metal. People will actually need it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some materials, but first, you'll notice, like, it's kind of annoying to have to, like, render something, like go to render it every time you want to see an image like that. And thankfully, you don't have to, because the top view here, these little icons, there is a mode here called render view mode, and this puts the render in real time. Look at that. I don't have to hit the render to wait to see my result. I can see it in my viewport. So it used to be that, like, rendering engines were so slow that really to do a render was like a big task. You hit render and it would take hours to process something, and it didn't look anything as good as this, right? But now rendering is like, and computers are so fast that we can just have rendering running constantly whilst we are working, and it's usually not computationally heavy. So this is Eevee, which is the much faster one. Cycles would be a little slower, but still. Anyways, now that we're in render view mode, let's talk about materials. So let's start with the, like, most different material. Let's go with the icing. So looking at our icing here, if I want to make this look pink and change its overall appearance, if I go down to my material panel down here, or material properties, and then I can just click on new material. And now I've got a bunch of different options here, okay? And these all do different things for the surface appearance. Like metallic will make it look like metal, right? Roughness will change, like, how sharp the reflection looks. The base color, this is like the main one you want to change for almost every object. This is just the base color of the object. So obviously I can make that look pink, like that. Let's pull in here a little bit closer, focus on that. So I can make it look nice and pink. The other thing way too diffuse. It's almost like a chalk looking icing. But if I bring this back, I can make this look more shiny. I don't want to go like too far because then it's like mirror reflection. I want to go like, you know, somewhere around 0.2. The great thing is we can really change these values at any point in the future. So when we add in other objects and there's different lighting setups, some of the settings can look a little off at that point. So it's very common to, like, once you've set up all your lighting and everything, to like reevaluate your materials. But it's completely non-destructive. I can change these at any time. And now I could create some very simple materials. Like I could say, let's make this look black, make it like a black, shiny, glossy ceramic mug. So, by the way, you'll notice I'm not going all the way to black. There's a kind of a unspoken, well, it's not unspoken, people speak it. You shouldn't go fully black or fully white, or like same with like colors. You shouldn't go like 100% saturation on a color because things start to clip. It's maybe a little outdated as like now color management is getting so good. It knows actually how to handle saturated stuff and like dark things, but it's still like a general rule. You never want to go like fully black because things are never truly like the real black is Vanta black, right? Which is like just this material which is like scientifically created to like emit no reflection. Simplifying it, but yeah. So like things will, even a black mug that looks really black to you is probably not entirely black. So it's still, there's going to be a little bit of lightness to it. So I'm just adding that in there. The roughness, this is where I can make this, if I wanted this to look like a, you know, shiny ceramic mug, I could do something like that. These are just placeholders, by the way. I'm just using this as an example of how to create very simple materials. The plate here, let's go, yeah, make it just look a little bit shinier than by itself. And then the donut, let's go give it a, you know, brownish, lightish color like that, make it a little bit darker, like so. Another value, which is super important for something like icing and the donut, and it's really important for just two things, which is food and characters. And it is that when light hits objects like this, they are mushy, right? They're made of like organic matter, and so light actually enters the object and it kind of scatters around inside it and then it re-exits it. It's the reason why when you like look at your hand in front of a light or the sun or something, you can see the light shining through. You can even see your bones through your hand if it's a bright enough light. So it's called subsurface scattering, and that value is underneath here where it says subsurface. If you go down here, you want to turn the weight all the way up to 1, because this is not the intensity of it. This is just like, apparently this value is supposed to be 0 or 1. It shouldn't be somewhere in between. To control how much of it is the scale, which is how far into the surface will the light penetrate. And then you can see here, you can increase this or decrease this, and you can see the light kind of get into it. Now, by default, it looks red, which I also think is a mistake. It's very suitable for characters because characters need red because inside a character is blood, right? But for every other thing like food, it shouldn't be red. And confusingly, and I know there's a mathematical reason for this because of like how light and the physics of things, but like different wavelengths travel at different speeds, right? Inside the server, that's how I understand it. So they've made the color of the subsurface R, G, and B separated here. So you can see we've got red as 1, then we've got green as 0.2, and then blue as 0.1. So essentially, I need to clear all those out and make them 1, which, here's a tip, you can drag over multiple values in Blender. So if you just click and drag down across something, and then you can just type in 1, and then hit enter, and it makes all of those 1. And then now I can, you know, tweak this. I can make this look a little bit more milky like that. But we can, you know, we can adjust those. I'll do the same thing for my donut here. Give it some subsurface, turn that up, and then I'll set this to 1. And then, yeah, let's just leave it at the default value. But you can see that that's with subsurface on. Actually, let me bring the camera in. All right, I'm going to go block it, bring this in, and I'm going to do a before and after render. So this is how you can use these slots. So this is with subsurface on, then I'll go to slot 2, and now I'm going to select this, and then I'll turn it off, and then I'll do another render. And now hit J back and forth. So that's the difference that subsurface can make to something. You can see here where it's like fully dark, it's actually now the light is passing through it, and that's what gives something a milky kind of look. And it's, as I said, it's mostly true for things like food. You can see it. I take photos of it myself all the time when I'm out and about because I'm like, look at that that subsurface, and my family think I'm weird, but I think it's cool. So, anyways, there you go. So that's subsurface. All right, I'm gonna pull the camera out to here, and then let's add a table, because this has to be a table. We're gonna do the texturing in the next part, but let's add a table. Now, normally, if it was a table that you were, make sure I turn that off while I orbit around. Yeah, if this was a large scene, right, whatever, you would have to do, like, model an actual table. If you know the camera is only going to be here, doesn't matter about anything except the top surface. So all we need to model is Shift A, plane. That's it. That's our table. I just have to scale it up a little bit, but this...
One moment, where is Shift A? Plane.
is our table. It's actually really common in 3D if you look at like breakdowns of 3D scenes in movies and stuff. Everything is fakery. They're just like buildings are cards. They're just like a plane with a texture slapped on it. Nothing is real. You know, when the camera moves, they might have to like model things properly, and people go like, "Oh, I have to model it now." But like if the camera's here, it doesn't matter. Just make it a plane. There you go. So that's a donut on a plate with a mug, and that, for somebody who has never used 3D before, that's an achievement. This is the kind of thing that, like, back in the 90s, you probably would have won, like, scholarships for and stuff if you could pull this off. This used to be insanely difficult. It is still pretty difficult because 3D is hard. But yeah, if you have, if you're new at it, this should make you proud. You've pulled this off. If you want to save this, by the way, you can go image and then go save, and then you can just save an image, PNG. You got all the options, JPEG, etc. However, if you want to make this look good, in the next parts, we're going to be making this look much, much better by doing some texturing and making our table look good and adding some ceramic textures and things to different objects. But this is kind of the end of the modeling section of the donut tutorial. So we touched on, you know, basic primitives. We add slight deformations. We extruded some things to create like an organic looking shape, did a little bit of sculpting, and then we created a mug, right? And then did some modifiers and subsurf to kind of create the general shape there. So those are kind of some of the techniques techniques that you will need to learn to create lots of different objects in the future. Just some though, but there are so many other techniques and tools, precision modeling mostly with hard objects, how to keep straight lines, and then modeling something that is really custom and deformed, getting those like large-ish shapes there, just kind of like almost using the mesh like a guide mesh to kind of create shapes. And then actual characters, like sculpting a character from nothing, and then actually converting that character into something that looks and has like subdivision so that the arm can move, and then rigging that character so that you can actually move the arms like a puppet. So these are the kinds of techniques that we don't have time to go into in the donut, but I do have time to go into in my course called the Beginner's Academy. So all of these things you can see on the screen here are taught in that academy. If you only want to learn Blender for free and you just want to do this donut, that is fine. But if you want to go further and you want to learn how to actually think like a 3D artist and take an idea from your head and actually convert that into something that you can use, whether that be for 3D printing or for rendering or for whatever visualization purpose you have, that's what this course is about. It's teaching you those foundational skills to actually create something that you want to create. So if you're interested in that, the link for that is beneath this video. And it is designed for complete beginners who have finished the donut, but you've learned enough now that if you want to jump straight to that, you could. But if you want to continue on, we will jump into texturing next. I will see you in the next video.
Okay. Technically, I'm only halfway through his tutorial video. Ooh. Oh. Wow. Okay, so I want to learn rigging. And for that, I'd need the full course, which is $290. On the other hand, I could also go for the modeling side only, which doesn't teach me rigging, which is the part I want. But it's like it's like $100 cheaper, but it's still $190. Uh. Now I want to kind of try and create one of my... Now I kind of want to try and either create a character or... a monster or something. Maybe I'll start with a deer. It'll be a bipedal creature. Just need to get those antlers in. Okay. It's only been like 30 minutes though, so I don't want to do it right now, but I'll do it probably tomorrow. Huh. I didn't expect him to say that I could just like I learned pretty much everything I need to. Cause he does have 4 more lessons, which are texturing, UV unwrapping, scattering, and then lighting and rendering. But here's the thing. This is already kind of more than I was wanting to do. I want a low poly art style just because, one, I think it'll be easier both to render and to create. And I also don't really know too much, so it will probably just be easier. So I'm assuming it'll have a low enough skill floor. Is that the yeah, that's the term. But yeah. And so yeah. But anyway, I will catch you all tomorrow where I try and oh wait, save as learning donut underscore 3, and then yeah, I'll see you tomorrow where I will leave a comment on what you think I should render. If I see any comments, I'll just render that. I'll just see if I can make that. But yeah, I'll